Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking everything movies, TV, comics, and entertainment. Join in the conversation on social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go. Welcome to a very special edition of the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. My name is Ken M. Joining me in studio, as always, you know him. He's the co-host. His name is Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
And since this is a special edition, we always bring in a special guest host, and we had to go to the family here at 607 Podcast. You know him as the host of the 3FN Podcast and 607 TWS, The Wrestling Show. Rich is joining us today.
What's up, ODPH Society? Always glad to be here, especially for these awesome special occasions.
Absolutely. And why is it so special? Last year, comic book fans were treated to an amazing line of books coming out via Best Jacket Press on the Comixology Originals line. So last October, we were greeted to We Have Demons with the phenomenal artwork from Greg Capullo, Clear with amazing visuals from Francis Manipal, and the modern vintage horror story, Night of the Ghoul with Francisco Francavilla on the artwork. All three are amazing books and have generated so much of a buzz. Now, the second wave of books on this line have come out. The breathtaking Barnstormers with artwork from Tulote, the modern, or the horror western that is becoming a modern classic, in my opinion, with artwork from Dan Panelson, and the all-ages amazing book that has just started out, Dudley Datson, The Forever Machine, with artwork from Jamal Igle. We have so much to talk about these books, but I figured we have to bring in a guest that can talk about them a little bit more than I can. You know his work from such books as Noctera, Undiscovered Country, American Vampire, Witches, Batman, the list goes on and on. We are so very fortunate that he has graced us with some time today to talk about these books. Ladies and gentlemen of the ODPH Society, please give a warm welcome to the one and only Scott Snyder. Scott, thank you for joining us today.
No, thanks so much for having me, man. I've been looking forward to it. Thanks for everything you guys do.
Oh, thank you so much. We appreciate all the kind words. But let's talk about the books now. It's been 1 year since Scottober was unveiled, and these three books obviously came out with a lot of hype behind them, and rightfully so. They all stand on their own with We Have Demons, Clear, and Night of the Ghoul. How would you describe the journey from then to now?
Oh man, I mean that's a great question. It's been wild. I mean, I think when you sign up for something like this, that Comixology was so generous to us about giving us kind of all this breadth and giving us kind of 8 books to try. And the fun for me when we signed up for it was twofold. One was the creative liberties that they were promising us, the ability to kind of do the books that we had pitched to them without any real constraints, so that it could be a real partnership between me and each co-creator to make something that we wouldn't be able to make elsewhere or on our own or any of that. And then the second part of it was trying to get behind a kind of delivery system that we believed in at a time when comics were really struggling with the pandemic. And I think a lot of the weaknesses and some of the underlying fragility of the whole kind of market was showing. And so it was about, well, how do we make all these books and then make them in a way that would be really affordable for fans so they don't cannibalize each other, and also point towards, one possible lane that comics can drive in the future that maybe will strengthen the industry by virtue of it having alternatives to just simply a competitive digital and print space. For me, I think one of the big mistakes that comics has made over the last 10 years, since I was the New 52 when we started doing day and date digital releases, is that we've kept digital in a sort of relegated to a space where the price has to be the same, the contents has to be exactly the same, the date has to be the same, whereas all these other industries, TV, manga, all these other places have subscription-based streaming services where you can essentially browse, for a subscription, and then get the physical of the thing that you want with all kinds of collectability attached. So the fun for us was to be able to do something that would give us, again, a lot of creative elasticity and make books that were personal to us and we were passionate about and would allow us to try new things artistically. And then also something that from a business standpoint, we believed in as a kind of forward-thinking mission, forward-thinking project. So that's really like the whole purpose of doing it. And then a year later now, it's sort of worked out better than I had hoped, where, the books were a joy. The first wave, getting to work creator owned with people that I've really only gotten to work, in licensed material with, from Greg Capullo, Francesco Francavilla, and Francis Mountaupole, who I've done a lot of DC stuff with, but I haven't had a chance to just kind of make stuff together from the ground up with. It was just such a joy, and all of us were left wanting to do more. So I'm already talking to Francis, and I have another sort of book lined up that we're going to be doing. Greg and I are, we've really got bit by the bug and can't wait to do more. We Have Demons, or another book that he pitched as well after doing some, after he does Creech and does the Batman Spawn crossover and that stuff. So, and he might, depending when, but we're definitely going to come back to it in that way. So, and Francesco and I, again, we're already talking about when his schedule frees up. So it's been a blast. And this second wave, the first wave of books, I could just keep talking forever.
No, go right ahead. No, absolutely.
The first wave of books was almost like, let me do the things that I normally do with these creators, but in a kind of a totally unchained way, where we're making stuff that speaks to the kind of things that we did together, at DC, but is just no holds barred our stuff that we're doing from scratch. And so We Have Demons has all the sensibilities of like metal and Batman. It's about a young girl who discovers that her father was part of a demon hunting organization, and that she's kind of cast right into the middle of this like millennia old war between good and evil. And Francis and I did a lot of Justice League, and that has a lot of cosmic and sci-fi elements, and Clear is noir that takes place in a sci-fi future where everybody connects to the internet neurologically, and so skins the world however they want. And so even though the superstructure stays the same, if you want to look out and see like 1940s noir, glam setting, you see that, or zombie apocalypse setting, you see that, and so on. And it's a murder mystery that takes place in that world. So again, it has kind of echoes, at least, of some of the stuff that we did at DC. And then Francesco and I, we've done tons of dark horror stuff at DC between Black Mirror and little projects on Swamp Thing and things over the years. So Night of the Ghoul is about like the greatest classic horror movie that was lost in a studio fire. It's fictionalized, obviously, but and it's about a guy who tracks down the director of that movie and discovers that the monster in that movie might not only be real, but might be haunting the building that he's interviewing the guy in. So again, like those three books have kind of the priorities of the work that I did with those creators at DC, but done on our own terms. And this second wave, Barnstormers, Canary, and Dudley Dotson, are with people I've never gotten to work with extensively, but who I've been a fan of, and who I've been friends with now for a number of years. So this wave is more experimental and a little bit more kind of like, let's try some stuff both creatively and creatively that pushes the envelope for me, at least as a writer, and takes me out of my comfort zone and allows them to really shine. And so Barnstormers is a historical adventure story about a guy who's supposedly a World War I pilot who comes back and is barnstorming around the country and picks up this really unlikely passenger and this runaway bride, and the two of them have this big crime spree adventure. And it's kind of about how 100 years ago, the 1920s weren't that different than this period. And then Canary, this really dark kind of horror Western that I'm doing with Dan Panosian, is like probably the most experimental of all the books. And yet at the same time, I really think we're hitting it, where it's like, it's a Western, but it's about a Western that sort of addresses all the stuff that, I think we're all the anxieties of this particular moment in time, but done in a very brutal, vicious kind of way, but still that adheres to the genre elements of a Western from back then, but it gets bigger and weirder, almost True Detective style as it goes in this really in this way that's pretty ambitious. And I think Dan is, Dan is just, if I didn't have somebody as skilled as Dan on it, I'd be scared to try it, but I love it. And then I've never done an all ages book, and then Jamal and I both have kids that are really interested in doing comics, so we decided to do this and kind of get their advice and do an all ages cosmic adventure with Dudley Dotson. And so again, these are genres that I haven't really worked in comics predominantly, and so they're projects that push me a little more, or kind of a bit more vanguard for me creatively than I've been in the past, I think. So it's great. I mean, I love it. Like, Comixology couldn't have been kinder to us and more supportive. And, it's a great way of making books where we own the rights together, me and the co-creator. So I'm going out with Night of the Ghoul next week, which is the first one of the bunch that we're taking out for TV film.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, we'll see. I'm really excited. You never know, but it's always fun to have something with a friend of yours that you own together that you're going to kind of go out there and see what people think of. So yeah, it should be good. That's like everything in a nutshell, I think, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I was going to say that covers the whole line. And especially for looking from then to now, I mean, I always say the move is so game changing that when you left and announced this was coming out, this is all creator owned, this is all going to be a different vibe than what we've seen. I mean, I always kind of refer to it as like when the Big Seven left Marvel originally to form Image, but to like a little lesser scale. It's just, you're coming in, obviously everybody knows your previous work, you have a very big fan base about this, and now you get the chance to really go all in about whatever stories you want to go with, and they've been, obviously such a creative freedom you can see in when you're reading them. And then now with this second wave, it can definitely go into some different directions that I think is just coming off so well to the fan base.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I think, like, I've been doing this teaching over at Substack that I've been really enjoying. I thought I'd like it, but I was nervous because I haven't taught in a couple of years, and doing it in this format where you're doing it over Zoom with a massive audience and not face to face or any of that stuff was intimidating. But it's wound up being like a real highlight of the month every month for me, and I look forward to it tremendously. And we have a bigger class tonight than I expected. We have a couple thousand people in it, but the two rules of that class that I really have always used for maybe 15 years of teaching, ever since I was like an adjunct in my 20s, are one, you have to write the story that you would love to find that day on the rack. It doesn't matter what it is, but it has to be the one that you would be your favorite. And then the second rule is you have to always try and be the most exciting writer to yourself as you can be. And so that's sort of the double helix of the whole class. And for me, like you were saying, I mean, I think the thing I love about teaching is like it keeps you honest, Yeah. 'Cause I can't go out there and like preach all that and then come home and be a total hypocrite about it and be like, I'm gonna phone it in.
Right.
So here I'm trying really hard to just be able to put my money where my mouth is. And again, I think the fun thing is I really believe in the kind of delivery system that we're offering with Comixology. I mean, at about this point right now, if you were to get a subscription to Comixology Unlimited, or if you already have Prime, you can get all of them anyway. So, and if I didn't believe in this, I'd be shilling for you to buy every single issue individually, because ultimately it would probably make us more money that way. But the reason that we did it was to say, like, look, this is one alternative to just strict direct market. And we were really scared. Like, what if we do this and it winds up hurting the direct market? What if we do it and it doesn't work? But I thought it would. And then luckily the numbers, our first book out from Dark Horse, because all the books come out in print 6 months after they're out in digital. We have Demons. We wound up, approximating the numbers that Greg and I normally do on Batman and that stuff, where it was above 90,000.
Oh, nice.
The first issue, and it had been out for 6 months digitally, and we offered new stuff in the print. It was like the script and the designs, and it's oversized and really beautiful sort of job on Dark Horse's part, like typical of them, to sort of repackage and make sure that it's, something special in the physical that you want. So yeah, it's it's not, this is the future of comics and everybody should do it this way. It's more like, look, this is right now is a really transformative time, I think, in comics. It's an exciting time where more creators are taking control of their careers than ever before, because there are all these different avenues suddenly with new publishers, many more than were there 10 years ago, from Vault and Boom and Scout and AWA and Kickstarter you can do, and everything. But it's also a really scary time where I think there isn't a lot of like sort of prescribed wisdom about this is the way it'll work. Everyone is kind of searching for what works for them individually and what they believe in as kind of a pillar of what will hold the comics industry in a stronger position, I think, down the way. So this way, luckily, it's been working out really well, and I'm excited. I'm just in the process of signing up to do some more books with them in 2023, and also still have some stuff in the direct market. So I'm going to have a couple books like Noctera, Bring Witches Back, and then possibly one other one that we're going to do straight to print first, and really go big and bombastic with, and then have these as a way of really being creative and again, like trying things that we can do without those books necessarily kind of competing with themselves or with each other in direct market, because there's only so much room, right? I mean, like, that's one of my big issues, honestly, with the direct market right now, that I think is just, I don't know what the solution is, but just the price. I mean, my kids are comic fans, and it's very hard to see them go in and give them their allowance and then have them go in and every comic is $4 to $5.
Yeah.
I always, like, I love when the comics are, doing metal and all that stuff. We always wanted to make it like much more than your money's worth, but trying really hard to just stuff it so you'd be like, wow, I got more than I paid for. But a lot of the comics, that method doesn't necessarily work for a book like Canary or Barnstormers that needs more breathing room. And so in that way, it's like, do I even feel ethical about saying, to get all my books, you're going to have to be winding up paying, $20 a month, like every month? For me, like, it's a lot for especially young people. So I don't know. I'm excited about this. I'm trying different things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's something, too, that this is so forward thinking, obviously reading the temp in the room and how much digital has now become such a normalcy for comic fans, too, that obviously going through Comixology, it's a way that if you're a subscriber, you can read the books first. But then it's also, there's no feeling like going to a comic shop on New Comic Book Day, picking it up, talking with the fellow fans there, and just owning the physical copy, too. That I think this way is just it's a perfect way to appease everybody, because if you read it on Comixology and you're really that in love with the books, like for me, when I read We Have Demons, I'm going out and buying those issues as I'm going to go buy the trade paperback when it comes out this week. Because for me, sorry.
Yeah, no, exactly, and exactly, like the paperback is coming out, and that has all this extra stuff in it. It's got all the variant covers, it's got the script, it's got a note from me about why we're doing it, it's got Craig's designs and it's meant to be something that you can hold and take home. Like, I just see my kids, I mean, I can only kind of go off what they do, and I've got like a whole range. We have like the 15-year-old, the 11-year-old, and now a 3-year-old, which, surprise, is wonderful. I was like doing the math in my head of like, this kid is going to go to college in 2037, and I'm like, I'm definitely going to need a flying car to take me to that one, but the 15-year-old and 11-year-old, they both consume everything, whether it's music, or TV or reading materials from Webtoons and Shonen Jump and Crunchyroll, and like everything they read, and like even Amazon stuff they read on Kindle and they read Audible. Everything is subscription based. And then when they like something, they want to go to the store. They're constantly going to the comic store with me to get the collections of the things that they want. Or if they read something by somebody and then they really heard great things about something else, sometimes they'll go to buy the physical of the thing that they know is like the classic. Like, for example, we were going over with my 15-year-old we're doing a comic together now, actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we're going to kind of announce it and just sort of soft pedal it a little bit in the late fall, but I'm really excited about it. This was our summer project because he was really interested, and I was like, if you want to do it, I'll do it with you and show you how to do it, but you got to do it. You
right.
know? And so anyway, but the point is, we've been looking at stuff like everything, like Frank Miller and Mark Millar, a lot of stuff that I came up on just to show him different story structure, and he'll read stuff digitally and then be like, this one looks like, I want the volume of Kick-Ass, I want the whole thing. So the store, and so we wind up, I think, spending honestly probably more at the store than we had before, based on his immersion in comics, through digital. So that's my hope, is that we can get used to a model that at least embraces that as a faction of comic consumption, not necessarily the totality where, that becomes the norm. But having it as an option, I think, is a really welcoming kind of pathway for especially young readers to feel like, oh, like all these other medium that I consume, I buy things in, I can just browse thousands of comics and then decide what I like and then go to the store for the culture of the store, for the collectability of the physical, for the community of it, the whole thing, because the truth is, when I was a kid, I got my comics through subscription because we lived up in upstate New York. And then when we moved to the city, I just kind of kept them going and that stuff. My dad was in the Air Force, and then he was in med school when I was growing up. And, until I was about 10 or 11, we didn't have a comic store. And so even then I kept my subscription to my DC stuff, my Marvel stuff. So I would get it in the mail, but I still loved going to the comic store to go talk to everybody and then find other stuff. And we went every Wednesday to Forbidden Planet, like the old one on 11th Street,
Okay.
In New York. So my point is simply, there's always a way to bypass the store. It's always been like a part of the culture, whether you could order them in the mail or in digital, whatever it is. But my stores, the two stores by me that I really frequent, Fourth World and Red Shirt, are thriving. Like they're boom and indie stuff because of kind of I think the pandemic kind of making people rediscover their love of their hobbies growing up because of the statues and the collectability and the toys and all of it. But it's that. It's like turning yourself books for people you're welcoming, and you've got a geek culture there. So I don't know. That's my feeling about it,
No, I can definitely understand that too. Especially for me, that's how I've always grown up, is just going to the comic shop, and that's what I've done. And so kind of walking into this whole digital era has been something very new to me. I know Pad's pretty much familiar because this is the era he's grown up in.
Yeah, just for me, Comixology has been such a welcome, avenue to get comics, because as somebody, and I'm sure a lot of listeners can relate to this, you got a job, you got your home life, family life, and just, not a lot of jobs are 9 to 5 anymore. It's whenever they need you. So some folks still, you work that 9 to 5, but then there's some folks who work, 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. or whatever else it is. So you don't have that time to get to the comic shop just because they close at a certain time. So, hey, I'm not able to get to the comic shop. And when I am, my favorite books that I wanted to get are all sold out, unfortunately. So Comixology's been that awesome addition where, hey, I'm not able to make it. I can get on there and I can get my favorite books and I can support my favorite authors.
Yeah. And I think that's great. And I think, there's a space for each. For me, digital is immersive and immediate and kind of browsy and breezy like that, and then collectible is this is what we're doing with our stuff. A lot of it is new to the process with Comixology, and I'm excited that they allowed us to do it. But their deal with Dark Horse wasn't even solidified when we started talking to them, and in 2019 into 2020. And for me, the whole goal was if I'm really leaving DC and I'm staying off Marvel and DC for a little bit, then I want to be able to do something that I feel is comprehensive, both creatively but also industry wise, that I believe in, and that I don't come up with Scott Tober and that stuff, but the same way DC, if you want to, you want me to shave my head and do a mohawk and play, go out there with Greg for metal. If I love the book and I believe in the book and I believe in the support you're giving us, then I'll be your dancing bear, no problem. I'm always happy to go out there and shill for stuff that I'm proud of, and I don't mind embarrassing myself for that, because I stand by what we made. So with Comixology, it was the same, where it was look, if we don't do this, or if it really is a fuck up in some way, I'm the one out there with my name being like, you know, I could easily do the books very quietly and just be like, hey, we're doing books over here, not promote it as this Scott Tober, you know, partnership with them. And instead just make the books. You know, plenty of people, big creators are doing books over there, like Jeff Lemire and a lot of people. And, you know, you make the books and you have a couple books lined up and, you know, you're just making them. But I wanted to go out there when they offered it and said, listen, we'd like to partner, and be like, what if, you know, you're, you know, a big sort of face of this thing. And the reason that I believed in it was because they said, like, look, with Dark Horse, we're partnering with Dark Horse. The books will come out in print. It's not digital only. And then when they come out in print, we'll do single issues for the first time. So with books that fit that. So with some books, like initially I was like, I don't know if like We Have Demons I knew was like Greg and I have a big direct market presence, right? So the fun was like, I don't want to do that one as just a trade. Not even because for the money. We don't, just to be clear, like they gave us big advances on the page rates for the artists and that stuff. So it's very unlikely that we make back enough to make money on the back end from royalties and that stuff for quite a while.
Okay.
So there's no big incentive for me to be like, I want to do it so that I make a ton of money doing single issues, because I don't make anything from that. But the idea was to do something where retailers wouldn't feel skipped over and just given a trade by a team that has a relatively big footprint in the direct market. So the whole fun was like, if you guys are willing to do single issues with variant covers and ratios and the whole thing, we'll hit harder than the direct market on the other side. And then some of the books that maybe aren't as direct market friendly or is a little bit more experimental, if you want to do trade, that's great. But let's try and make each thing special to each book. And they were really cool about that. And the first 3 books did well enough that they want to do single issues with all 3. So Night of the Ghoul, the FOC for that is like coming up in a few weeks, but. And we did single issue with, like I said, with We Have Demons, and we're really happy with it. So yeah, it's kind of like each thing is its own project. And the idea of being able to say, there's a way that these things can help each other. Like you were saying, if I can't get to the store, I still don't want to be like, shit, I have to pay $4.99. So now I'm not going to buy the comic. You know what I mean? If I buy it digital and it's $4.99, that's my budget for that comic or that series. But if I can go browse it for free or for the price of whatever I paid,
right,
for the monthly subscription, then I'm like 10 times as likely to then go to the store at my leisure when I can and pick up the collection or pick up the, especially if the single issue has extra stuff in it, maybe pick up the single issue, especially if it's a number 1 or it's the finale, whatever, or pick something else up by that creative team, So it's like that. It's like the more money you let me spend in the store by being able to kind of browse and see what I like online, the more money I'm going to spend, especially as a parent, with kids that suddenly want the toys and want everything. So it's a really, I don't know, man, it's a really fascinating time. I think, like, again, I'm here saying, like, if I screw up with it, I'm listening, but I'm really happy with how it's gone. And people seem to be responding really well to the whole idea, and it's certainly like there are hiccups all the time. Like I know Comixology, when they did their interface, there's a lot of sort of difficulty in terms of it, the experience being as good as it was before. And I know they're constantly, talking about how they're working on it and all of that stuff. And I totally understand that kind of frustration on readers' part and the worry that, your old thing is going to be absorbed into this big company, Amazon, and all
right.
of that. But the ultimately, like, the thing that I walk away with is the same thing we've been talking about, which is the people at Comixology that I know. Like, Amazon acquired Comixology. Comixology is, thriving as a space within that, and the people there are comic people. It's Bryce and Kiwi and all the people that work there are from comics, like, and they want comics to thrive. And so, they're committed to both helping fix the reading experience, but also being part of a community that thrives on all levels. So, like, that's why I feel like they support, all these cons and artist alleys and all that. I'm going to Thought Bubble in November, and it's sponsored by Comixology, the whole convention, which I didn't even know.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so it's just like, I just think I love that they're a good player in that way, and I like I like what we've been able to do with them in that way. And I'm coming out of DC. I'm interested. I'm trying to, I don't know, man, just think of myself more as part of an ecosystem in comics and not, not just within that kind of constrained stuff. Like when you're at DC and you're doing an event, like it's the whole quarter or 2 quarters maybe depend on that thing. So people's jobs depend on it, people's the company's health as a company owned by a larger megalodon that's like looking at it, like all of that stuff. And so that pressure, I thrive in that environment and I like it. It's like the World Series, and you're like, let's do this. But it's very also like, it's a very particular math. It's like a math that's all about how do I make this event personal and something I'm passionate about what it's saying, and yet at the same time lift all boats so that all fans, everybody is like, I have to read that thing because it's so nuts and so like, what the hell are they doing over there, like that. And so being in that for so long, I think coming out of it, the fun is being like, well, how do I stop thinking in those terms that are so about how do I do something I care about and then help the company I'm at that way, and instead think of the industry a little more holistically and say, how do I be a good part of this whole thing? How do I do something that I'm proud of and I can sleep well at night being like, I believe in what we're doing, and I'm thinking more broadly about, the industry as a whole as opposed to like DC and the health of this company and that it, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. One of the things that I also enjoy is not only I'm not just I just don't read comics, I collect them. Not in the sense that I get them graded and I'm worried about that, but it's something cool that I can pass down to my my son and everything else, and it's pretty awesome. And the nice part about Comixology is I get to read everything. I don't have to worry about, ruining the book or, jumping a glass of water on it or buying 2 different books. And that's really nice. And then also when you pointed out, when you go to paper, you're going the trade paperback route with putting out, We Have Demons and having all the extra, that's awesome for a collector because I've read the book, I got to digest it, I can look at the extras and then I can put it away, and it's something that will stand later on. So I think that's just super awesome, and it's great for that avenue.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think the other thing is like the idea of separating it that way so that you have collectability be the direct market side of it is, again, like I'm excited about the possibilities. We're talking about all kinds of new stuff, like with Dark Horse, also like special exclusive signed stuff that drop, like trying to follow a model that if you want to be, if you can buy in at whatever level you want, right? So like if you want to just get the collection because you liked reading it digitally, you can do that. But if you are a speculator or somebody who really enjoys, especially in these days, because we were saying before we jumped on, like baseball and the Yankees and the whole world feels like they're back into sort of speculation and gambling and like that, FanDuel and and Sports Kings and like you see it everywhere. Everybody's gambling, But that idea of like if you do want that buy-in, then you can do something where we're going to release like one of 100 covers that's signed by me and Greg for We Have Demons, or merch that you can only get like for 24 hours, like statue that we designed, or so we're getting into that idea of like that option if you want that stuff. If you don't, there's no reason, there's no push that you have to buy it. There's no pressure the way there is on retailers sometimes, like you get the special variant if you order 50 copies. It's more like, look, if you want to order this, you have this window and it costs this and it's up to you, and it's totally optional. So all of it is like trying to figure a way to both give you give you different comfort levels, and wherever you are, there's one for you. Like if you want to you can read all 6 books that I've been doing at Comixology for the price of one comic, like right now, a month, like, or Prime. If you already have it, then you have access, you can just go browse all of it. And we have 2 more coming out. One of them they're going to announce in a minute. In terms of, we've announced all what the titles are, but when the release date is for New York. But Book of Evil is coming, and then Tuck and Cover, which are with longtime creative partners Jock and Raphael Albuquerque.
Oh, nice.
And Book of Evil is this one that I've been working on a while, where it's like it's about a future where 92% of the world's population are suddenly born sociopaths and nobody knows why, and it takes place like 20 years after this. And it's really dark and fun. It's kind of like Stand By Me, about these kids growing up in this world, and what it's like. And then the other one is Duck and Cover is the idea that Rafa and I talked about way back when, like just a few years ago, but when we were finishing American Vampire, about doing, where it's like, what if the United States and Russia have this nuclear exchange in the 50s and kind of obliterate each other, and the only people that survive are kids that hid under their desks, like in those old PSAs, and nobody knows why. And so it begins in this kind of 1950s rockabilly post-apocalyptic adventure.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's super fun. And so the idea is like, that wave is kind of going back to, like, you know, if this wave is a little more experimental and trying things maybe, you know, that push me a little more outside my comfort zone creatively, that's kind of coming back and giving you big over-the-top comfort food in a different way. Even though they have some creative experimentation, like Book of Evil is mostly prose. It's like, it looks like the book you found, as though you found it and it was written by this kid there. So anyway, we got a lot coming. I'm really happy with all of it. I feel really good. I mean, I still get tempted now and then. You talk to Marie at DC or CB at Marvel, and you know, every once in a while I look over and I'm like, oh man, you know, like, I had an idea for Wolverine, or I have an idea of how to kind of surprise people in the DC universe. But it's been such a good time doing this and just kind of making stuff on your own, you know, and not worrying about some of that arithmetic that's there internally at the company, that I don't know, I'm not rushing to go back at this point. I will, I'm sure at some point, go back to Marvel and DC, but right now I'm just kind of enjoying myself too much.
No, and that comes through the writing too. Like I say, when I'm reading this as a fan, like, I can definitely tell how much fun you're having, and just, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of pressure on this. It's just, this is a labor of love, and you get to hang out with some of your friends and get to do some really cool stuff.
That's how it feels. You know what I mean? Like, I feel really liberated to just try different things creatively, and I have more work than I've ever had, but I feel less stressed than I've ever felt work-wise, you know, like the whole thing. And again, none of it is a knock on DC or Marvel. Like, I love them and I love working there. It's not.
Oh, sure.
Like,
but
sucks over there. This is more just like, you know, there's a certain level of pressure and a certain level of, you know, of internal politics that you have to kind of navigate when you're there, especially if you're doing a big sizable thing where you have to convince each department it's going to benefit them in some way. And then, you know, like, there's all the personalities, and then there's selling it to the retailers and the fans. And it's a wonderful, I love operating in that world, but it also, like, by 10 years in, when I was doing death metal, I was like, this is, and especially because that was a really tough time at DC, when I think, you know, there was a lot of, when I got there, because it speaks to the whole uncertainty of the comic world in general. I mean, in the world, like, it's the gig economy, right? Where you're like, I came in pre-52, New 52, I mean, and then New 52 was part of kind of the initiative where Warner Brothers had just purchased DC officially. And then a few years later, we're in there, 5 years later or whatever, and then AT&T purchased Warner Brothers. And then Discovery purchased Warner Brothers from AT&T. And all of that stuff does trickle down, not in terms of, like, they say, hey, you have to have these superheroes using a phone. It's not like that. Or, hey, you have to mirror the movies. But the people above you that work as liaisons between, you know, Warner Brothers, DC, they're always worried about what is expected of them. And in those situations, sometimes it can be harder to push things that are kind of maybe a little bit more left of center in terms of what you're trying to do, like Superman with a dark side arm and long rock and roll hair, or Batman as the Lord of Death, or whatever, you know, Joker dragons and the whole shebang. So that it became harder and harder to have those conversations from the New 52 onward. And I think by the end, it was more like, it was so sort of, everyone was so worried about what AT&T and Discovery wanted, and whether or not we were going to upset sort of the apple cart by doing things that would change, you know, the characters even for a short period of time into these, like, rock and roll versions. And all that kind of stuff, that it was like, I just need a break, you know, on the other side of this. I need to just like not stress about this anymore for a while.
No, definitely not. I mean, because like I say, the books stand on themselves. They have such a unique energy out there that, like, I mean, I don't want to say you can put it in cruise control, but trust me, the fan reaction from ones that we talk to online and in person, everybody's really in love with the product that's coming out.
I'm so glad, you know, I'm so glad. I love what we're doing, and I'm really proud of it. You know, I really believe in it. So I hope people enjoy them. I think, you know, each book is really a passion project, and I know that sounds corny, but it's the truth. Like, the thing that I feel like the idea with each one was to go with a co-creator and say, give them a seed of an idea and be like, Greg, you know, why don't we do something that's like, I have this idea about what if demons are an infection based on this like cosmic material. It's the heaviest stuff in the cosmos. It's like a super heavy element. And then you fight them with the lightest stuff in the universe, atomic number 0, like a halo, you know, that's very rare also. And there are this group that's been fighting, and that's it. What do you think? And, you know, do you want to do it? It'd be like demons and epic, you know, millennium old things, and be 1,000 blades that people have. And he was just like, 100%, let's do it. And I want it to be, let's do a young person. Let's make it generational. Let's make it about a teen character that's like coming in, having to find their own faith in the midst of all this turmoil. And I was like, great. And the same with Francis, with Clear. He was here at my house, like with his wife and daughter a couple of years ago. And we were just hanging out. And we were talking about our fears for our kids. And it was like, you know, I hate the fact that my teenager, like everything he encounters online is algorithmically designed to kind of push him towards more of what he already likes, you know, which makes sense. Sales like perspective, like, you like this? What about this? Like, this is like that, you know? But when you think of it on a macro level, it kind of sucks, where it's like they're rarely exposed to things outside their comfort zone. And then if you extend that to, you know, information and news and political viewpoints and all of it, and you realize how cocooned you wind up getting if you kind of follow the arrow to the next thing. It's just like the thing you already like.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where Clear came from, was, well, why don't we tell a story about that? You know, what do you think if we did a sci-fi future, Francis, where everybody kind of lives in their own, oh, I love it. Well, let's make it a murder mystery. Okay. Same. Ghoul was me and Francesco just talking about classic horror movies, because we started watching them in the pandemic to kind of escape the daily horror of it. And he was like, why don't we, you know, wouldn't it be cool if there was a classic monster for today? And I was like, let's make one. And then the Ghoul, the monster of that book, is, you know, very reflective of this moment in the way that the Ghoul is kind of a creature of pestilence and levels empires and civilizations by releasing plagues when the civilization has become kind of rotted or bloated or that kind of thing. And so it speaks to some of our fears in the air, at least, about this moment in time with the way we've become, you know, about inability to have any discourse, the divisiveness, the you know, hypocrisy, all of it. So that's how each book was built.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Barnstormers, same thing. Canary, 100% same thing. That came from Dan and I talking about classic Westerns and how would you do a Western today, because Westerns are so engaged with as a kind of genre machine that, like, there's really very few sort of Westerns that aren't about the period in which they came in some way, because there's such an American myth-making way of thinking of ourselves. So it was like, well, how do you do one now? I'd have to kind of bend the genre a bit. All right, well, let's do it. So that each one is really special that way. You know, each one is like a really personal book. They're not just like, oh, I have this pitch. Well, who can do it? Who's free? It's not like that at all. It's really like each book is, well, do you like the seed of this idea? Okay, well, great. What's your take on it? Okay, well, let me react to that. And then back and forth. And that's why I think they're, you know, like when you do metal and that stuff, it's me and Greg making our own shit and not worrying about what fans think. Not because we don't care. I care deeply what fans think.
Right. But it's more personal. I mean, this is just your labor, your ideas all coming together. So, I mean, this is more or less for you, and then the fans will definitely, you know, get something out of this as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that. It's like making something the same way the priorities at DC were making it for yourself, hoping they love it the way you love it. It's just this one, I'm not worried as much about whether it's not even I worry if they love it. I mean, I certainly worry and want them to love it, but there isn't pressure on it the way there was there, where it's like, oh, if it doesn't do well, or if it doesn't sell above 100,000, it could mean like, people's jobs in that way. Like there's none of that, which keeps you up at night, especially when you love the people you work with like that. So this is much more like, just a lot less stress, a lot more getting to watch baseball with my kids, even though I have more work. So.
Well, that's awesome. I gotta, coming up fairly soon here, it's going to be time for New York Comic Con. Of course, myself and Ken will both be at New York Comic Con this year as well. Wondering if you could share any plans that there's possibly happening for you at New York.
Totally. Hang on one sec. I'm just texting my kid that I'm out here. Yes, so I will be at New York Comic Con. We're going to announce our Comixology presence pretty soon, so I'm going to be doing some big stuff with them for fun again, the way we always do, like some kind of partnership. We did Scottober last year, and then we did Scottober West Coast out in July, which is it has its own logic to it, but it was like out in San Diego, and then we're doing some special stuff this October, and they've got a lot of cool announcements to make all around with some great creators they're partnering with. So I'm really thrilled. Well, we're going to basically in like a week or so, we're going to make a big push about like, guess what we're doing. So I can't quite give everything away here, but I'll be there. I'll be there the whole time. I'll be promoting this. I'll also be promoting, we have Noctera coming back, which I'm really excited about. This one is just a special issue. It's Val #1, and it tells sort of Val's story, both past and present, the way we did with Blacktop Bill.
Okay.
Francis Manipal drew it. So
nice.
Tony and I co-wrote it, and it came out so well. I'm really proud of it. And then Noctera proper comes back in the winter with Tony. We're working on the next arc right now, but it's big. The next arc is like, out of control, where it's like, it's sort of like Aliens to Aliens. So it's like giving him plenty of time to make lots of monsters and trucks and all that kind of stuff. So that'll come out right in the heart of winter. We'll announce it soon, but that comes back. So we'll be promoting Noctera, be promoting the Comixology stuff, and the other, I should know that New York, like right after New York, around New York is when we find out if Witches gets the green light for the TV stuff that we've been working on with it. So if that comes through, that would be, I don't know, that'd just be a dream. I love what we were able to do with the pitch for the show and the episodes we did. So I don't know. I've never worked in anything TV before, so this was a huge learning curve, and I loved it. So I'm really, I don't know, I really hope, but I'll know, and I'll obviously tell fans like by New York or soon after, if we know, in by end of October. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely gonna put the good energy out for that. But before we let you go, we got to talk a little New York baseball with you. I know you're a very big Yankees fan, as we are too. Padawan Jay has been sitting here ready to talk some baseball with you. So, Pad?
Yeah, so as Ken mentioned, you're a big Yankees fan. So we the team had a red-hot start to the season, hottest in God knows how long, and kind of cool off a bit. What is your assessment of the team? Are you still optimistic that they're going to do well come postseason time, or is the sky falling?
Oh no, I'm very optimistic. We've been watching the captain and seeing sort of the slumps that the team went through, even in their their dynasty years. But yeah, I mean, I know people get like fire Cashman, fire Boone when things dip, and certainly the slump from like August was miserable. I mean, like to go from being the best team in all of baseball to having like I think it was like the third worst record was brutal, and to lose 2 out of 3 and to lose to teams that you should be able to handle. And then, I mean, like yesterday was not pretty. I mean, we won 5 in a row, and then it was not, A's took 2 out of 4. We got 3 hits total?
Something like that.
It was ugly, man. It was ugly. And Schmidt, I love him, but I don't think he's a starting pitcher. And I think our bullpen is hurting. And the fact that our injured list right now is like Nestor and Chapman and Britton and Abreu and King and like, I mean, it just is and Efros still, like, it's brutal. I mean, I don't know. Like, I like to think of it as like you have to have some like like if it's like 3-act structure, like a film.
Yeah.
Like it's exactly when you'd have the moment before the climax, the third act, where everybody rises up to fight. This is the all hope is lost moment where it's like, what's going to happen? Like you got Toronto creeping up. You've got, the Braves and the Mets and the Astros with better records suddenly. I'm a big believer, though. I believe Judge is going to get past 60. I believe we're going to pick it up. I don't believe in, like, we got a curse because of Gallo or Monty. I'm a big I don't know. I'm a big optimist. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm optimistic as well. I was talking with a friend who was also a Yankees fan, and they mentioned at the start of the month, what a slump. I'm like, yeah, you figured it had to come at some point, and then 3 weeks later, we're still here. One of the worst slumps since like the early 1900s. I saw a stat which I couldn't believe, but no, I'm right there with you.
But the weird thing is there's no reason for it. Like,
yeah,
that's the thing that's so frustrating is like. I mean, Benintendi, like our trades, yes, like Frankie Montas did not show up great, the first time, but he did all right last time. And I think, hang on, what? Who are you talking to? I'm doing an interview. Oh. This is my kid, who's a huge Yankee fan himself.
Nice.
My 11-year-old, but I think the weirdest part is like, so Benintendi is showing up, Efros did well. Yes, Monty is doing amazing over in the Cardinals, and like, does it suck that we traded him? Would I have done that? No. But that said, like, there's no reason on paper for us to be doing so badly.
Right.
Like, everything should be better, if not the same as it was when we were red hot. So Gallo is gone. Like, yeah, we have a couple drags on our lineup. Like, I love Higgy, but
I'm with you on that one.
Whatever is not. And Hicks, I mean, like, I feel terrible that people boo him and follow him around, but like, he gets up and it's like an automatic out, So I just feel like there's no reason for it to be happening. Is the thing that drives New Yorkers crazy. Like, we're all like, what's happening? Like, what juju or like weird psychological funk did we fall into? So I don't know. I'm a big believer that it's just a weird phase, like a strange growing pain, and we're gonna come out of it and rock out on the other side and make it to the World Series.
Yeah, no, I liked all the trades too. The Montas one. At first I was like, wait, why? What's going on? Why is there issues? He's supposed to be really good, and then I'd heard, he just come off a bereavement, like he'd lost a close family member. I'm like, oh, okay, I get that. Yeah. Benintendi's been great.
Yeah. Benintendi's been great. I mean, that's like, it took him a minute to heat up, and now here he is. And like, I don't know. And Judge to me is like, I do not believe that his story diminishes now. I just think it's too close to like something historical for it to go. And to have somebody like that, like my kid, you should see he's got like a life-size cutout of Judge in his room, and like, we got a signed ball for Christmas. That was our big thing.
Nice.
We lucked out and got it for a couple $100, and he's got like, his card collection is insane. But Judge is like our big guy in our house, and like, ultimately to bet on yourself. Oh, well, they can't really. Oh, he's just showing me.
Very nice.
Oh.
We're Mets fans. That's the sleeve patch. You got a DeGrom card yesterday. He's
nice.
Very happy.
That's so cool.
But like, yeah, to end on like something that I think ties it together, the idea that like Judge was offered what most of us would be like, wow, that was a really good contract, and was like, no, I'm worth more, and I'm going to show it to you. And everyone, I remember just being like, not like, wow, that's obnoxious, but being like, no, look, I mean, it's possible he could be like Judge 2017. If that's the case, then yeah, but that's a big bet to make on yourself, and to be like, what if you get injured, all of it, and suddenly like you're worth a lot less than what you were just offered. But now to be like a shoe-in for MVP and to rock out, I mean, it's a great story, and like to show
absolutely.
Your kid, like to be like this, like, what, like take the risk, do the thing that you think you're worth, do the thing that if you have more to show it, and that's like part of what we're all trying to do in comics right now too, is like, I think at this crazy moment when there's so much uncertainty and so much like, because that's the thesis, and then I'll shut up about it. It's like, hey, honey, will you just close the door? It's getting too hot in here. Yeah, no, you can't. No, you can't eat your brother's cake pop. You cannot eat that. No, I'm sorry. Will you close the thing? He's trying to get his brother's cake pop, but he can't. The closing thesis for me is like, that right now in comics is crazy scary in a lot of ways, right? Like it is, like the way the rest of the world is. Like, you don't know, like DC and Marvel, like I said, there's less. It used to be you have a day job at DC Marvel and you could do your indie stuff on the side, and there were exclusive contracts, you know, given out a lot more. You had security, and you know, you took mitigated risk. Now, the same way like being in TV, learning about TV, they used to have network, 24 episodes a season, then syndication, hopefully, and residuals. Now with streaming, you have 6 episodes you're guaranteed to work on. It might pay more than what it paid at network to do each episode, but at the end of 6 or 8 episodes, you don't know if you're going to get another season. You don't know, and you don't get residuals the way you did before because there's no syndication. So the same in comics, where it's like now you don't have those same safety sort of places like day job safety stuff. It's more like you do whatever you can, but there's so many more opportunities. The same way, like there's 10 times as many shows to get hired on. Not that I want to do TV. This is my one thing that I did, which is like learning about it. Like you can get hired on 10 times as many things. There's always more work, but that work is less secure. In comics, there's a million ways to pick what thing fits you where they did not exist before. You can kickstart. You can go to a smaller company that takes half of your ancillary rights, like TV film, but make great partners. You know, you could do something totally on your own, like an Image. You can decide you're really going to try and get into DC and Marvel, and even though they don't give out long contracts, use that as a way to boost your profile. You can do anything. Like you can do digital comics. You can do whatever. There's a million ways in now, and a million ways to pick what's right for you. But the key is understanding who you are, what you want to make, and betting big on yourself right now, you know, because there's no chasing like a safety thing anymore. There's no like, well, there's no conventional route the way there was before. There's no like, this is the way most people do it. Everybody's all over the place doing their own thing. So that's what I mean. Like, it's like, be your own Aaron Judge. You know what I'm saying? Like, go out there and say, I'm worth it. I'm going to try something that fits me, even if nobody else thinks that it would. Do it.
Yep, and that's a perfect way to describe what you're doing with this line, because honestly, the books stand up for themselves. They are all fantastic, and I'm not saying this as somebody that is just shilling this. I'm saying as somebody that personally went out and bought a subscription, has been telling everybody in earshot, go get the subscription to get these books and go to the LCS when these books come out.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Like, I love what you guys do with the podcast, and I feel like we're all in it together. You know what I mean? Like, all of us are just trying to find a way to spread the like word about how great comics are and get more people in. I mean, the bigger tent we create, the healthier it'll be, whether it's digital, you know, print, whether it's DC, Marvel, Image. Like, I mean, I miss the old bullpen of like DC versus Marvel a bit.
Right, but
I mean, like, now it's just different now. It's more like, how do we get as many people into comics as possible? And that's the key. You know, that's the game.
Absolutely. So that being said, in the liner notes of this podcast, we have the information to sign up for all the Comixology books. The Substack, which you should be checking out, is highly recommended. And we got Scott's Twitter handle in there as well. Scott, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to talk some comics with us. We'd love to do it again sometime.
No, anytime, man. This was a pleasure. Yeah, let's do it again soon.
Absolutely, will do. Rich, thank you for coming on the show, doing the guest hosting duty. Where can we find you?
You go to 3fnpodcast.com, get all the information's listed there, and thank you, Scott, for talking to us again as well.
And for the one and only Padawan J.
Sorry, my kid came in being like, can I eat my little brother's cake pop thing in the middle, but this is dadding on the side.
No worries at all.
Yeah,
no, we can edit out, so don't worry about that at all.
No, you can leave it in.
Okay,
there you go.
Sorry, interruption, but anyway. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, thanks very much.
All right, thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
You got it. Bye.
Bye. The links to get all of these books are in the liner notes of this episode, and the whole team here cannot thank Scott Snyder enough for taking time out of his day to talk to us about these fantastic comics. I can't stress enough, you need to sign up for the deals to get this. You need to go to your local comic shops. Get the print version. Is something that is so much of an investment you can't even comprehend. These books are absolutely fantastic. Thank you again for listening to this special edition of the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. We'll see you next time.